Somebody help me, please. I'm suffocating. Somebody help me, please. I'm suffocating. Help me, please. You were expecting someone else? Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and today we'll be taking a look at one of the best Doctor Who stories from Season 4, 1966 to 67. No, try again. You what? No, the Faceless Ones. We will be taking a look at the Faceless Ones today, or rather the newly animated version of the Faceless Ones. So basically, again, like Macrotero, this story has been animated, completely animated, as there are 2 surviving episodes, but due to BBC America wishing the story to be completely animated and in colour, we've got all 6 episodes animated and in colour, as well as the black and white option. However, these DVD and the Blu-ray releases include the original episodes included, both with the reconstruction, which is available on disc 3, and there's an option on disc 1 to watch all 6 episodes animated, and also an option to watch episodes 1 and 3, the original versions, with the animated episodes 2, 4, 5, and 6 in black and white, and the colour versions on disc 2, which is a change from the Macrotero where it was the other way around for some reason. But anyway, so the option on disc 1 to let you watch episodes 1 and 3, the original episodes 1 and 3 with the animated one, is like the animated episodes before BBC Studios, where they would release the animated episodes with the live action episodes. So the Faceless Ones. This is a really great story, really enjoyable. The plot sees the second Doctor, Jamie, Ben and Polly arrive at Gatwick Airport in 1966, about the same day that Ben and Polly left with the first Doctor at the end of the War Machines and the start of the Smugglers. And they arrive at Gatwick Airport, but they get into a bit of trouble because they park on the runway. That's one thing Fearhair does better than this story. When the Doctor realises he's parked in an awkward position, he then turns the TARDIS round. If the second Doctor had realised quick enough, perhaps he would have sent the TARDIS over somewhere less dangerous that he and his friends could get out of. They'd probably still be accused of trespassing and maybe illegal immigration, but at least they'd be out of the way of the planes. But yeah, they get into some trouble. But during the commotion, Polly witnesses a murder by a man on another man who turns out to be a detective. And the killer had an alien gun, and he turns out to be connected to Chameleon Tours. So throughout the story, they try to investigate Chameleon Tours. However, Polly gets kidnapped after alerting the Doctor and Jamie. And when Ben goes down to investigate in the next episode, he gets kidnapped. So these 2 characters are out of the picture for a bit, which is a massive shame because this is their last story. The contracts are actually going to go up to the end of episode 2 of the Evil Daleks for Michael Cranes and Annika Willis. However, it was decided to cut it down to episode 2 of the Faceless Ones, with 1 or 2 scenes at the very end of episode 6, which is a bit unfair on them, considering that they were more or less written out. I think maybe Annika wanted to leave, but Michael didn't. But either way, they were written out of the show, more or less, and quite unfairly. I think they should have at least had the rest of this story and then left at the end of episode 6. Don't worry about the extra 2 episodes. Don't worry about cutting it down by 1 story, by 6 weeks. Just let them have this one last story, and then they can go. It's the same with what happens with Jackie Lane in The War Machines, where episode 2 was her last episode. She was contracted for that, and then they didn't renew it for the rest of the story. They didn't keep her on for the last 2 episodes. They just wrote her out, and she never even got the last scene of the episode, so that's something Ben and Polly got, at least. But yeah, it's a bit unfair on them only having 2 episodes plus the very end of the last episode in the episode. And in fact, episode 2, we don't actually have the real Polly. It's a chameleon pretending to be Polly, so Yeah, so unfortunately, this story fails as a final story for for two companions, just like the War Machines did. However, everything else is done really, really good. The War Machines is a fantastic story, but it is a bad final story for a companion considering how they were treated. And the same here. I don't think this story is quite as good as the War Machines, but I think this one's a very good story with the Doctor, Jamie, and their new friend Samantha Briggs, who was going to become a companion, but Pauline Collins turned down the offer. Thankfully, she would return to the show as a guest character in 2006's Tooth and Claw as Queen Victoria. Why did I do that? When a painting of which appears in 2017's Empress of Mars. Um, but they, along with a inspector, Crossland, I think, they go investigating chameleon tours, despite the commandant of the airport's frustration of the doctor's supposedly um, what's the word, outlandish theories. Doctor's theory is that after reading something in the newspaper, that Chameleon Tours is kidnapping young people for some reason, and that their plane flying is merely a front, and that also they're aliens. So eventually, the group have to investigate Chameleon Tours, leading to the inspector getting kidnapped after he goes on one of the planes. But thankfully, the Doctor is able to make the Commandant believe him when he exposes a chameleon within Gatwick Control. Um, and then later, when Sam attempts to board a plane, Jamie steals her ticket to prevent her from going so, and she gets kidnapped by the chameleons. I would say typical, but she's actually a strong-willed character, so I'm not going to say typical in her case. Polly, on the other hand, might be considered typical. No offense. Eventually, the Doctor and a nurse who had previously had a chameleon taken her form, but it was killed by a fellow chameleon before she could kill him for ratting them out. And so the real nurse joins the Doctor on a flight to the satellite where the chameleons are and attempt to try and negotiate a way to help them whilst also making them stop their plans. So that's more or less the Faceless Ones, and this is a very good story, really enjoyable. Some great stuff here. Patrick Troughton is on top form as the second Doctor. Fraser Hines is great as Jamie. Despite not getting much to do, Annika Wills and Michael Cranes give some final great performances as Ben and Polly, and also a chameleon disguised as Polly in Annika's Wills' case. Samantha Briggs is also a pretty good character, like Lucy Miller in the Big Finish audios and Donna in The Runaway Bride and Series 4. She starts out like a grumpy, annoyed character, very annoyed basically. That's the situation. But over the course of the episode, she sort of mellows and becomes more likable and enjoyable, and you don't mind spending an adventure with her. I would not have minded her becoming a companion, her mellowing more as a person, perhaps even given more of a character and personality. I mean, she was fine here, but I think further down the line, then again, 60s, I don't know if they would have done that. Um, but I think we would have been off to a good start had she become a companion in this story. Instead, we get Victoria in the next story, played by the lovely Deborah Watling, R.I.P. But sadly, Victoria isn't as great of a character as Sam Briggs, and that's just going by one story each, let alone a whole series, or almost a whole season, I should say, because Victoria left in Fury from the Deep. They had this thing where they would kick out a companion in the penultimate story and then introduce the next one in the following story, or two companions in Ben and Polly's case, from the end of season 2 to season 5. They would do that. The Inspector, Crossland, he's a really great character, and it's also fun that the director of the Chameleons takes his looks. He takes his image as the chameleons. They're basically stealing people's images. They look like people, like airport staff, for instance. So the director takes Inspector Crossland's identity, basically. Also, we've got the Commandant, who he's a good character. I mean, he doesn't believe the Doctor to start with, but he's not unlikable. And when he does believe the Doctor, he becomes even more likable. But yeah, he's a good character, and as is Jean Rock, his secretary, and that is such a 60s name, Jean Rock. She's a great character as well, and I like how she, at one point when Sam is being attacked by the comedian who's posing as air traffic control person Meadows, she comes to restrain him when he's attacking Sam. Although it probably looked better in the original, because in the animated version, it just actually just restrained him just before some police officers came over. There might have been a bit more of a struggle in the original. I'm not quite certain. But still, she's a great character, and even comes up with starts finding some information out by herself. And also, the comedians themselves are really good, like Captain Blade and his associate, the nurse and her comedian version, Meadows, director. Got some really great comedian characters in here and some really great supporting characters. Okay, I won't linger on characters too long, but I more or less said what I needed to say. I will say this: Blade is a particularly brilliant character, and I also like at the end when, Blade and his associates turn on the director in order to meet the Doctor's demands. Okay, the main point of this review is the animated version of the story, and I have to say this is a really greatly animated story. After Macra Terror took Doctor Who animated stories to a new level, that was the best thing about that story, was the animation for last year's animated version of that story. And this time, Faceless Ones, once again, we get a fantastic animated version. This time, directed and produced by Anne-Marie Walsh, who directed and produced the 10-minute animation of The Within Space, episode 1, the first 10 minutes of that. And whilst I think that one could have been improved on, this time she's as good as Charles Norton was on his last 3 projects. So no complaints there. My only issue with this animation is, I mean, there is a couple of staggered points and some points that won't line up with the original audio, and that's been the case with all of them apart from Sharda, because that one was new original audio, and also I would say the same for any original animations like the Infinite Quest and Dreamland and Scream the Shalka. But for the missing episode animations, they've had that issue apart from Sharda, where it was original audio. But yeah, there is those few points. But besides that, and a few niggles and a few animation movement niggles that don't quite line up, even if when there's no dialogue or sound effects and it's just music, it just looks a bit like with Dreamrock restraining Meadows. I think some of the maybe some of the movements might have been better in the original. Perhaps, I'm not completely certain. But I have seen the loose cannon reconstruction of this, but it was last year, the last time I saw it, so I'm not incredibly sure. There is one point that I do have to point out is so incredibly noticeable. It's amazing and astounding that nobody on the animation team noticed it. In part 5, about 116, 117 minutes into the the overall when you press play, it's about 116 and a half to 117 minutes into the story, towards the end of part 5. It's a bit when the Doctor and Nurse Pinto are on the plane. Pinto speaks, but she doesn't move. No lip movements, no head movements. The character is just still. The Doctor is fine. Some of the characters in the background are fine, but Pinto does not move, and she's speaking in that moment. There is no eye blinking, there's no head movement, and no lip movement for when she's talking. And it even looks like there was a bit where the Doctor was reacting to her, perhaps, maybe a worried look, or maybe giving her a reassuring smile. But the character just stayed still, just stayed still. They didn't notice that. The animators didn't notice that before the episode went out. It just looked like they just left the character. They forgot about animating that character in that one bit. They forgot about moving her. It just, I think they must have forgotten to animate her for that bit because she just doesn't move, which is a shame. All the rest of the story is more or less fine, apart from a few niggles, but that can be forgiven. But this bit, how did nobody notice this? They made the episode in color, and then they blacked and whited it, and then when they made the version with the original episodes 1 and 3 versions, they put those two in, and at no point, even if they did do final checks, perhaps watch the final story to make sure everything was fine, everything was working, at no point, at any point in that process up to the DVD Blu-ray release, at no point did nobody notice that bit. I noticed that, and I'm not an animator. So at no point nobody noticed that bit. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I mean, that's the biggest issue. I mean, the rest are just nitpicks, but this one, oh boy, that's oh dear, ooh, that's not good. But the rest of the story, perfectly animated, besides a few niggles and nitpicks, but those aren't too distracting. They're perfectly serviceable in this new format. However, it's just that one bit towards the end of part 5 when Nurse Pinto does not respond to the doctor when he's talking to her on the plane. There's no movement. That's my real only complaint about the animated version this time round. The rest of it is fine with a few nitpicks and niggles, but nothing that can be considered too distracting or bad. Just that one bit. I'm surprised nobody noticed before it went on DVD and Blu-ray. It was apparently, according to the booklets, production finished about just under 2 months before the release. It finished at the end of January, so I'm surprised they had just under 2 months to check it out before it went out, and I'm surprised they didn't notice it. Oh well. But like I said, the rest of the animation is fine. So on the whole, The Faceless Ones is a great story, really enjoyable. Has some great stuff going for it, some great character moments, and the animated version, apart from that one bit towards the end of part 5, considering with Nurse Pinto that I just talked about, is more or less top notch. A few niggles and nitpicks, as I said, but they've all got those. But apart from that one big one, not really anything to worry about too much. Maybe some improvements for next time, but for this release, there was only really one bad point, and that was, well, not even the whole scene was bad. It was just one character moving to one character, or rather, not moving. But apart from that, more or less brilliant animation. Possibly the second best animated Doctor Who store episodes after the Macroter, because the Macroter at least animated all of the characters moving in their scenes. They didn't just leave them static if they were speaking or doing something. But never mind. But this one is still a very strong animated story. It's just that one major bit, and that's more or less it. Any other issues are nitpicks. But The Faceless Ones is still a great story, and it's got a great animated version. I shall be giving it a 9 out of 10. That was my original score for the story before this animated version. But yeah, it's still definitely worthy of a 9 out of 10 score, and the animated version just makes it even better, apart from that one bit towards the end of part 5. But yeah, brilliant story, and I totally recommend checking out the animated version of this story. It's really great. So that's The Faceless Ones. The next Doctor Who animated story that will be coming out is Fury from the Deep, which is a popular one. Last time I saw it, I wasn't so hugely keen on it. Maybe the animated version will make me like it more, perhaps. That one will be completely animated, no surviving episodes. That's the only completely missing story from season 5. Also, that story, I think, is going to be out in October or November. No confirmed release date, but they were going for an autumn release. But due to coronavirus, I started wondering, actually, perhaps it might be delayed to 2021. But after watching the documentary on the DVD, on The Faceless Ones, it looked like quite a few of the animators could work from home. So perhaps, fingers crossed, we might still get the Fury from the Deep in October, November 2021, or at latest early to mid-December. Might still make Christmas a Christmas release. But yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, Fury from the Deep will be next, and we'll see what's announced to be on the way afterwards. Again, coronavirus might hold up some production on that. But in the meantime, we've got Fury from the Deep coming up, which might meet the October-November 2020 release, or at the latest, the December one. And before that, we've got The Faceless Ones to enjoy, so go out and enjoy The Faceless Ones, or stay in and enjoy The Faceless Ones, rather. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.